Hey, what's up everybody? It's TheHyphenate here, and today we're going to talk about the Weeylite Ninja 300. This is a fixed 5600 Kelvin COB light that's small, lightweight, portable, easy to use, and does what it's supposed to do. Now I'm shooting this shot here with the Ninja 300 being the only key light. No other lights in front of me are on except for this one, and I do have the Aperture Lantern modifier on there to soften the light, and I'm shooting at 6% output power on the light. And the camera settings are at 1/50th of a second, 24 frames per second, ISO 500 at aperture f1.8. Now I'm in my music studio, which is only about 10 foot by 10 foot. This is a small light that works great in smaller to medium-sized studios. Now, like I mentioned, this is very affordable. It retails for only $180, and it actually comes with quite a few accessories, while also having the ability to be controlled via an app. It has a simple, easy-to-use interface, nice, clean, and simple design. And it's 80 watts that packs a lot of power. It's actually really bright. You can run it off AC power or Sony NPF series batteries, but it will need to be at least a 550 series or above. They state that it has a CRI and TLCI of 95, which is pretty decent. And from my observations, the color reproduction doesn't seem to be too bad. It seems to be a bit more color accurate than other lights in this price point from smaller brands. So here on the back, you have your power input. Again, you could use the battery power adapter, or you can use the AC that plugs into the wall. Next to that, you have a USB Type-C. This is for updating firmware, which you can connect this to a computer to do that. Then we have a mode button that also is a menu button. Then we have an on and off switch. And then we have our dimmer that also has a pressable button. And then here on the left, we have our screen. So I'm gonna go ahead and lower the ISO on my camera to darken the image, because this screen is actually pretty bright. So if I just turn it on now, it's gonna be all blown out. You're not gonna be able to see. So I'm gonna go ahead and lower my ISO. So now you can see the screen. Now the screen is just a dual color, blue and white, nothing fancy. On the top right, you have your battery indicator. Underneath that, you have your mode. We're currently in Cct mode. Now with the Ninja 300, you only have 5600 Kelvin, so you cannot change the color temperature here. And then you can see here, we have the knob. We can adjust the power output. 100%, this is actually really bright for this little light. Now we're gonna go ahead and dim it down. If we click on mode, now this is gonna get you into your different scenes, your different effects. You can adjust your output power. And then if you click in on the knob, you can see that you can change the actual speed of whatever the preset is. Right now we have the lightning. So if we click again, now we can change the type of effect. Explosion, faulty bulb, fire, camera, TV, etc. You actually have quite a few different effects, but I'm gonna go ahead and get out of that. In all honesty, with single color lights, I'm not a big fan of almost any of the effects. The only ones that I would consider that really work, lightning, faulty bulb, or paparazzi camera. Everything else I don't think looks good with just a single color. TV or fire, those don't really make any sense unless the color is kind of changing as the effect is running. So I guess it's kind of cool that they have some effects here, but most of them are just not really usable. Now clicking on mode, all you really have is Cct mode, which is set to 5600 Kelvin, or the effect mode. That's all you have here. Now if we hold down the mode button, we'll get into the menu. Here we can change the channel. Now this is for wireless use, whether you're using the app or the remote control. Once you select your channel, you can click the button in here on the knob, and then you can change the group. Now if we click on menu, change the mode to temp. Now if you click on that, you can go to on. Now this is gonna protect the unit if it starts to get too hot. It'll limit the output so it doesn't overheat. Now if we click on mode again, we can go into the fan and we can actually turn off the fan. The fan here is actually pretty noisy, so I would definitely not recommend having this light next to your camera or your microphone. It is a little noisy and you will hear it, though if you have it maybe about 8 to 10 feet away from you, it's not really gonna be bothersome. Having it a little bit further than that is probably ideal. Now you can click the button and you can turn off the fan. Now you do risk possibly getting it too hot where it can overheat. Now this light's pretty bright. If you're using this in smaller studios, I actually think you can have the fan off and run at 50% power or lower, and you'll be more than fine. Now, if I'm shooting in a larger area, then I definitely increase the output power. But in a small studio where the light's gonna be closer, I actually prefer to have the fan off. Now, if we click on menu again, we go to the update mode, and if you wanna update it, you have to turn this on, and then you would connect this to a computer and then do that process. Now, one thing I have noticed is that if you turn it on, it's gonna stay waiting pretty much indefinitely. I cannot get out of this whatsoever unless I turn off the light. Then I can turn it back on and it'll go into the main menu. Now I'm not sure if you can hear, but the fan turned on automatically once I turn this light back on. So if you have the fan off in the menu and then you turn it off, the moment you turn it back on, the fan's gonna come back on. So you have to manually turn off the fan every time that you turn on this unit. Now with the fan off, you can still go to 100% output power. A lot of other lights do not let you go to 100% output power when the fan is off. But with this being at 100%, you do risk the light overheating. I would highly recommend not going more than 50% of the output power when the fan is off, unless you're in a pretty cold environment. So this is the carrying bag that comes with the light. It's actually pretty large. I think a little bit bigger than it needs to be for this size light. But let's go ahead and open it up and check out what's inside. So here's the inside of the bag. It's not the most premium bag. The dividers, everything here feels pretty cheap. It does have a hard plastic around the inside underneath this fabric here. So it actually has a harder case than many other cases, but just the inside is not very durable. Nothing here is specifically set up. So you can actually move these if you wanted to. They're just Velcroed on. But you have your light here, you have your reflector plate, you do have your adapter to make a standardized Bowen mount, and you do have the AC adapter here so that we can plug it into the wall. And it also does come with the adapter for Sony NPF batteries, but I already installed it, so it's already on the actual light, but it normally does come outside separately. Now on the top, you do have a pocket here, and we have the remote control, we have a shoulder strap, and then we do have instructions here. Now when it comes to the actual light, it's actually pretty small. I actually really like the form factor of it, and it does have just a single-sided locking mechanism for the light stand mount, which I actually prefer. I don't like when small lights like this have the dual locks. Now I'm not sure if you can really see here, but it does have teeth here, but it does have this rubberized piece in between the teeth. Now this is actually pretty good because then it's not set to preset angles. You can put it to whatever angle you want. But if you actually want to put more weight on this light, like if you have a bigger modifier and you need the teeth to make sure that this locks in place without it dripping down or kind of getting dragged down from the extra weight, you can actually unscrew this fully, take off that little rubber piece, and then use this with the teeth. The entire arm is metal except for the actual locking piece here. This is plastic, so I would prefer that to be metal. Now, if you don't want the Sony NPF battery adapter attached on here, you can just unscrew it. It actually, again, comes without it being installed, but I keep it on because most of the time that I'm using this little light, I'm running off battery power. Now, it is important to know that you need Sony NPF series batteries, and you do need 2 of them on in order for this to operate off battery. If you have just one battery, it will not turn on. It does come with this power cable for the adapter, so you plug that into the adapter, and then you plug in the other side into the back of the unit here. Now, when you're using AC power, you have to disconnect this port and then use the actual wall adapter that plugs into here. So you would just leave this off, and then you can plug in the AC adapter directly there. Now, if we look at the front, we can see how small this mount is. Now, the entire light itself is made out of metal, except for the back here where the buttons and the screen is. That's all plastic, as well as the mount here, which I don't like that. Again, mounts or tightening screws, anything like this where you're putting weight or you're relying on something to stay on secure, I'd rather it be metal. This is plastic, so that's kind of a downside. I definitely prefer metal, but it doesn't seem like it's gonna be a problem for most attachments. As you can see, you do have openings on the top and on the bottom, which allows for heat dissipation. Now this thing can get pretty hot if you're running at full power, and it does have a fan that is pretty loud for this small size light. And it is a little bit more audible because of these openings here. You can hear the sound from the fan a little bit more. Now the light stand mount at the bottom of the arm does have for vertical and horizontal attachment points. That way you have a couple ways on how you can mount this onto a light stand to make sure that you get the right angle necessary. Now here we have the Bowens mount attachment that comes with this kit, and it does change this smaller size mount to a full size standard Bowens mount. Now another issue that I have is that this is fully plastic. So here you can actually see the light mounted onto the Bowens mount adapter with the Aperture Lantern. Now, I will say, just moving it back and forth, it does feel like this adapter is gonna break. Now, as I move it, I can actually see some of this bending already. That's a problem. I really hope that Weeylite sees this and starts to ship out these lights with a metal Bowens adapter. If you're someone who uses modifiers like I do, you need something reliable here where it's not gonna break. Now, there are some that are made of plastic, but they're made out of a way stronger, way more durable plastic than the one that comes with the Ninja 300. For example, there's one from Nanlite, which is made for the Forza 60, but that one works perfectly on the Ninja 300. And it retails for less than $15 US. I've used that adapter with quite a few big modifiers and it's held up great. It's like 1,000 times better than the one that comes with the Ninja. So I highly recommend getting it, and I do have a link for that in the description. Now, when it comes to the reflector dish, it's a pretty decent size for this small light, and it does work really well. It does really help intensify and point a solid spotlight with this reflector dish on. So this actually seems to be pretty well made and is some type of aluminum, so it will last a good while. Now, with the AC adapter, you do have this cable here that plugs into the wall and then plugs into the brick here, and then the brick has the cable that plugs directly into the back of the light. Now, in total, the cable length, you're getting about 10 feet. A great addition to the kit is that it does include the remote control. This will allow you to control this light and many other lights. You can change the group and channel so that way you can make individual settings to different lights. This is a pretty simple control. All the settings are very easy to use and it works well. All right, so here we are in my studio. All the lights are off. I'm gonna turn it on now at 100% power so you can see the spread. Now, it does have a pretty large spread without the reflector plate. And at 100% power, this is really bright. Now, the light right now is currently only about 5 feet away, or maybe 4.5 feet away from the wall. Now I'm gonna show you with the reflector plate on. Now you can see that that spread drastically gets limited. It creates a pretty nice spotlight, though it is a pretty wide angle, even though it's a small reflector plate. Again, that's at 4.5 to 5 feet away from the wall. The further you get, then the bigger that spotlight's gonna be. And as you can see, the reflector plate does help intensify some of the light. So you can see a little bit more output because of the reflector plate pushing all the light towards a smaller spread. Now, currently on my camera, my settings are ISO 100 at f1.8 on full frame, shooting at 1/50th of a second. So currently my camera's cutting a lot of light and I'm still overexposed on a black wall with black studio foam. Now currently I'm shooting this with the Ninja 300 being my only key light. So the only light in front of me right now is from this light. It's about 5.5, 6 feet distance and about 7 feet up, pointed directly at me with no reflector plate. It's just the COB open and it has a pretty wide spread and it's only at 2% output power. My camera settings are 1/50th of a second shutter speed, f1.8, ISO 500 with the daylight white balance setting. Now right now, just looking off the LCD screen, I can see that the color reproduction and the skin tones are pretty decent. It actually looks pretty accurate. More impressive than I thought it would be for a light at this price point. A lot of lights around this price point have terrible skin color reproduction and are not very accurate. This actually seems to hold up pretty well. I think it's definitely workable, especially for small studios and YouTube content creators. This actually can be a very affordable and easy to use light that will get the job done. And the more I look at it, I'm actually fairly impressed with how it looks without a softbox. Now, I personally still prefer to always shoot with a modifier, a softbox or a lantern or something like that. But right now, just off of this is something that I think would actually work for many people. Now, it's definitely important to know that when you don't have a softbox or some type of diffusion, you are gonna get harsh shadows because the light is so concentrated. Even though the spread is pretty wide, you can see here how harsh these shadows are on my shirt as I move my hand around. So now I have the Aperture Lantern on, which is one of my favorite modifiers, period. It is a beautiful diffusion piece, but it does cut some light. So as you can see, I'm slightly underexposed. The exposure has gone down, so I need to actually increase the output just a little bit to match the same exposure I had before. So we were at 2%, let's go to 3%, let's go to 4%, and maybe 5? Come on, let me see, maybe, actually I think 6 is roughly about where it was before. This actually looks really good. And as you can see, the shadows are drastically changed. So the shadows that you saw in here, they're not harsh anymore. A diffusion like this is definitely the way to go to get a nicer, softer look. So right now I'm shooting at 6% output power, and because it's so low, I actually turned off the fan, which again, I definitely recommend if you're shooting at a lower output power. And honestly, just looking at the image here, this looks really good. Now this light isn't perfect. It definitely has some downsides, and I did mention them throughout this video. Though overall, for the price point and what you get out of it, I actually think it's a pretty good value. I think this is a great light for YouTube content creators or people that are starting off and working in smaller spaces. Personally, I own a lot of different lights from a lot of different brands. I have some more of the budget lights as well as some higher end, more expensive, more powerful lights. But I will say that this Weeylite Ninja 300 is actually pretty good, and I'm pretty impressed with it. I'm gonna keep it nearby, especially for some shooting scenarios where I need something small, lightweight, and easy to use. This is something that I definitely recommend for people that are on a budget. It's nothing too fancy, not extremely versatile, but if you need a solid daylight fixture in small to medium-sized spaces, then I would definitely recommend getting this one. If you're interested in getting it, I do have links in the description where you can purchase it. It doesn't change the price that you get it at, but it does help this channel. Please make sure to drop a like on this video, drop a comment below if you have any questions, and please make sure to subscribe. I have a lot more videos coming soon. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.